Hello, my friends. Adam Stevens, life and well-being coach from St. Louis, Missouri. Thanks for tuning in today. If you're live or if you're watching the replay, this is episode 37. I'm calling this one The Beauty of Less, Becoming a Minimalist. Today, I really wanted to talk about becoming a minimalist and sort of living an essentialist life, a simple life, and how much happiness and beauty that brings to our lives, for ourselves, for our partners, and for our kids. As always, you can go to adamstevenscoaching.com, and I would encourage you to scroll right down and get on my community list. And I send you a monthly wellness newsletter, and there's all kinds of good tidbits in there. And also, when you sign up, you get to go to my community page, which has some free teachings and some wonderful resources. I was thinking a lot. I've been having a lot of great conversations with people, whether it's friends, clients, family, just random people, different people in my life, coworkers, whatnot, about happiness and also about where we're at in our culture as far as Western civilization in America. And it's pretty interesting to see some of the different quirks that people are developing. And really, to be quite honest, a lot of the suffering that's been going on in our culture for several years, and it's pre-pandemic, but also really intensified by the pandemic. And so, as I look at things economically, I try and avoid political and social news. In fact, I'm a lot happier since making that decision, but I do read a lot about the economy, and I'm pretty interested in investing, in particularly passive investing, and just good old fashioned, live within your means, stock money away, and have a decent life, a good retirement, and do work that's meaningful. I would say, I'm a pretty cheap person. I had to develop those habits, but making the decision to become a minimalist years ago, some of the books I read back in the day and some of the strategies I've used to really scale back my life and just enjoy a good sort of simple life. It's been really useful for me, and I wanted to share about that today. I've been speaking so much on the podcast about mindfulness, happiness, and different things. And I did last year. I was all about nutrition and wellness and different things. So there's different phases of my content, and here recently I've been really wanting to talk about minimalism and really sustainability too. If you kind of look at the way that ecologists and anthropologists and different people look at where we're at, they often use the term progress traps, meaning, and I talked about this last week on the happiness traps episode, that we have solved a lot of basic primal survival problems in our world, and the rest of the eastern part of the world, the more impoverished part of the world, has industrialized much more rapidly than America did. So America industrializes, and if we look at the playbook from China and India, they're doing it much more rapidly than us, and they've learned from us. So things are different socially, with the controls and the tight controls they have on their economies and really just their citizens. And so when we look at sustainability of now in a globally connected world and living in a world when you can order things on your smartphone and they show up in the middle of the night while you're sleeping that day. I joked about that last week, just a 24/7, 365 commerce loop. Any kind of produce you want year-round from all over the world. Really just an addiction to commerce. All of the diesel fuel to move this stuff around. The global connectivity. The way that really in the West, extraordinarily wealthy and powerful companies manufacture goods across the world on basically what would amount to slave wages in America, and then pump that stuff back in. And it's all a cyclical thing with a consumer society that when we slow down, the whole thing slows down and it affects the whole thing. And really the progress trap here is that we've solved a lot of the primal and security problems, at least for a lot of the world, not for everybody. And now we've created a global connection, a digitally connected world, economies and currencies and central banking that are connected. And we're kind of in a situation where we as humans, I think, and this is, I'm very much an anti-establishment hippie. I have kind of a mistrust of a lot of big, centralized power. But where we're at now is we're going to have to decide where humanity goes, right? What are we as humans? I actually think we're becoming less human as we consume things, as we sprawl out and lose our sense of community. I don't think I ever talked to a parent, particularly of a high school or a college age kid, that isn't saying their kids are anxious or isn't saying that their kids aren't launching the way that perhaps previous generations launched, with confidence, wanting to have a career, wanting to be monogamous, wanting to have kids, wanting to be married. And, I have opinions on that, but that's not really what my show's about. But really, what's going on and what has happened to the current generation, what's going to be left for, what's to come, what's going to be left for my kids, what's going to be left for my potential grandkids, etc. And so when we think about minimalist, I really do think that minimalism, getting back to the essential nature of what we are as humans, getting connected to nature, getting connected to local communities, I really do think that at the end of the day will be the difference between people who are happy and stable and can keep family life together and people who can't, just to be blunt. And I like to be blunt because, a great prophet said the truth will set you free. I also wanted to mention, so I started getting into minimalism. I don't think anybody can talk about minimalism or coaching or blogging or digital courses if you don't talk about Leo Babauta. I think that's how you say his name, which was a guy who wrote a book really in the early 2000s called The Power of Less. He was a guy from Guam. He was a journalist, and he moved to America, and he really scaled back. He started a blog that was just black and white. It was a white background with just text. He had no pictures. He had no comments. He was really early in the game. He had some really famous interviews with Seth Godin when Seth Godin was doing all this stuff with permission marketing and all these people that were basically looking to opt out of the system through creativity, through books, through courses. And you can't talk about minimalism, at least in America, without talking about Leo Babauta. And so I read his book, The Power of Less. He had another book. He was really big on habit formation. And actually, my wife used his habit formation techniques to run a marathon. I used his habit formation techniques a long time ago to quit smoking. But Leo's stuff was great. And also, in addition to that, I read a lot of Dave Ramsey's books, which I don't sign off on all of Dave's theories. And I certainly don't sign off of all of his critique of society right now. I think he has a tendency to be a little bit of a bully, and his stuff has gotten a little. I don't know. I think he's really adopted the mentality, which we're seeing everybody on YouTube and podcasts do, which is short videos, lots of energy, and there has to be like sort of a common enemy, right? So I think the social critique we're seeing there, great fundamentals for money, great fundamentals for family, but also there's some stuff that I've witnessed recently, so that I'm not really down with. So in saying that, I think The Total Money Makeover is an amazing book. It was something that really changed my life, but I don't sign off on all the stuff that's coming out of that presence online. So I learned a lot, but like I'm saying, I don't sign off on all that. But so the two big ones would be Leo Babauta, Dave Ramsey's books on just really a cash-based life, living well within your means. And that's what kind of set me up over the years to really just look at the role money and debt and things play in our lives. And you sit down with a paper-based budget and write the stuff out and think about what you really want. All of a sudden, like stopping for the bottled water, buying a soda out of a vending machine, all sorts of things, spending money on things you could easily do on your own, subscriptions, different things, like just actually stopping to say, do I need this? Do I need this stream subscription? Do I need this, whatever it is? Is it sustainable? And does it add any value to my life? And I can tell you right now, when you really phase back and get used to living within your means, the benefits come quickly, and it takes a little while to get steam, but it's really worth it. I mean, it's really, really worth it. And also, over the years with, starting to garden and letting my kids see this is where food comes from. And this is like last year, we didn't have a great season. The garden, it produced some, but I overwatered early on and I really hurt my tomato plants, and it was kind of a rough season. We had a ton of green ones, which is great because we love fried green tomatoes. But my kids were able to see, oh, well, we invested money, we invested time, we worked our butts off for like 3 weekends in a row to get started. And at the end of the day, our Swiss chard didn't make it. Rabbits ate up some of our carrot buds. Our basil really didn't come in. So it was like I wanted the kids to have that lesson of seeing that we tried to grow food. And if we lived in the old school economy, we'd have been in trouble because we didn't do well. We made some mistakes with the way we watered and the way we set up our soil, and I didn't have the fertilizer mix right. So getting back in touch with the actual like human experience. And I'm really into evolutionary psychology. And one of my favorite podcasts is the Modern Wisdom podcast, which is a guy from the UK named Chris Williamson. And I think he moved to Austin because everyone in the podcast world has decided to move to Austin. But I listened to a lot about evolutionary psychology. And this particular stat has been floating around for a couple of years on different channels. But it's the idea that humans really aren't built to be in relationship with more than about 150 people. It's the idea that we are built for tribes. We're built to be in groups, hunters, gatherers, community. We are built to have grandma not only babysit the kids, but to literally be a part of the kid's life. We're built for a tribal life where we take care of one another's kids. We hunt together. Prior to cash-based societies, right? If you wanted to store wealth, you stored that in what's called social capital, meaning if you went on a hunt and you caught an elk, you fed your brother and your cousin and your uncle, or you fed your neighbor. And if you didn't catch an elk the next time, maybe one of them did. So the only wealth you could have was in community, in social capital, and in relationship. And we've gotten to a point in our world where that is breaking down. So when you hear about all this emotional anxiety, personality disorders, suicide, teen suicide, one of the largest populations is in men between 40 and 50, right? When we start to see this, it's because our family units, our communities are breaking down, really community. And we're starting to see just an absurd amount of random acts of violence and the mass shootings and all. And not to be a buzzkill, I'm just talking about the truth, right? But the real solution for me is to really try and get connected deeply and understand that relationships and love and emotional intimacy are the highest currency you can have. Talking about modern wisdom, Chris interviewed a guest named Dr. Cassie Holmes the other day. She's from UCLA, and she wrote a book called Happier Hour. She studies happiness, particularly from time management. And one of the things I thought was really interesting about her work is she said that the top 3 things that negatively impact people's happiness are commuting, going to work, and doing house chores. And those are things that all of us have to do, especially in a society. I mean, if you are really into the corporate thing and you're trying to climb the ladder, those are things that can really tap people out. And that's also understanding that psychologically, just from a genetics standpoint, some people are built just the way their personality is to be more cheerful, and some people are built to be grouchy. So you have to kind of start with where you're at and then realize you really can't affect that too much, but you can affect your mindset. You can affect your time management. You can affect the way you spend money and the work you do and the relationships. So the things that negatively impacted happiness were commute, work, and house chores and all that stuff that all of us have to do to a degree. And the things that impacted our happiness the most were intimacy and connection and relationships, right? So it's understanding that if you look at what's happening in our culture, it's that we're losing that, right? As things become more siloed, as people just really get, I mean, I don't want to say narcissistic because that's such an overused word, but just really self-involved. Things are so digital now, and the things we consume, are people being genuine with you? Are influencer types or politicians or all these people actually being truthful with you? Is sales and marketing truthful? And the answer to that is no, right? Everybody has struggles. There's no perfect marriage. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect person, right? So it's learning to move with that ebb and flow of success and some failures and growth and periods of joy and periods of deep sorrow, periods of grief. We are very complex emotional, physical, and spiritual creatures. And so as community breaks down, that's what's really that is what really scares me, and that's what really I think will continue to intensify some of these mental health issues, and that's pretty scary. And so, not to be righteous, I fail at this stuff every day, but I would say that my wife and I, and really just a lot of the people, I'm so lucky to just our little suburban street. There's so many amazing people on our street, and just really dialing into like what really matters in life. And when you're talking about being a minimalist, like I don't need a lot of the crap that society tries to sell me. You know, um, I go to a men's group, and I was having dinner with my men's group a few weeks ago, and I was talking about some of this stuff, and I was talking about passive investing and just mutual funds and doing it the long, hard way, which is just to work hard, live within your means, and 30, 40 years out the gate with compound interest, you're doing all right. And someone interrupted me, and they said, that's such a middle class mindset. You'll never get rich that way. And I paused. I didn't interject. The conversation, when you're out with a bunch of bros, the conversations, everybody's talking over each other. So I didn't say anything, but I kind of reflected on it, and I thought, what is it to be rich? I mean, I've been in a long-term relationship with a woman I love for 22 years. She's an amazing mother. I have two beautiful children. I have amazing friends. I have a core group of guys in my life that we call ourselves a tribe. It's a group of men, just platonic friends. They're just my best friends, and we've committed to a life without secrets. They know what's up with me. We really push one another to grow as men, as fathers, as husbands, and for me, to be rich is to have, like I said, that emotional intimacy, that currency of love in my life. And I am rich. I mean, I talk to both my parents. I talk to both my siblings on a pretty regular basis. There's no major family drama or anything. Like I'm connected with my family. I'm connected with my aunts, uncles, cousins, my remaining grandparents. And how could you need more than that, right? Just all of the network of beautiful people, coworkers, different people I've done healthcare with. How could you need more than that? And if you're really, this is where the mindfulness comes in. If you take the time to slow down, and this is why I love yoga and also contemplative prayer, just ask yourself, why do you need more than this moment? Why do you need more than you currently have, right? And ask yourself, is it influence? Is it status? Is it greed? What is it? Do you think it'll make you happy? And we all know it doesn't. If having a lot of money worked, then rock stars would never go to rehab. Hollywood actors would never commit suicide. Wall Street executives would never have drinking problems or get divorced 2 or 3 times. Like if this stuff really did fulfill us, clearly America would just be a model of mental health, right? Because of how much we have. And so, sort of winding down here, understanding that sustainability and what we have to do, and that we're in a trap of that. When consumer culture slows down, what happens? Recession, whether we're going to call it that or not. And what happens to people's jobs? And what happens to people's lives? What happens to the tension within marriages? What happens to children? And we have to ask ourselves, are we going to grow up, or are we going to continue to be immature? Because I think in our society, we're extremely immature. And I'm not trying to sound deep. I'm not trying to sound negative or anything, but what I hope to aspire to be with the values as a father, as a husband, as a business owner and entrepreneur, as a creative and a coach, I aspire to really push on people and help them understand that the real value in life is love. It's relationships. And that, as always, here's the hippie in me, that we're souls. Before we're humans, before we're physical beings, we're spiritual beings. I love it when people consume my content. It's such a joy to bump into people anywhere out in the community, and they'll be like, dude, I listened to your podcast. And it's like, man, that's the greatest compliment I could ever have, that people are actually, even if you're listening to 10 or 15 minutes, I know that not everybody listens to all of them or reads all the blogs, but if you are listening to my stuff, I just want to thank you so much. This is something that I've been working on so hard for really the last 4 years. And I'm building a dream, and you're part of that. So thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.